Welcome to the Think Before You Post podcast, where we talk about digital citizenship and anything else we find that's fun and entertaining on the internet. I am Christina Jantra, and you are?
Paula Evans.
And you are?
And Therese Brandt.
All right, welcome. On this episode, we're going to discuss screen time. Screen time and how it affects our minds, our well-being, our time. And the first thing I want to introduce on this topic is the new finding from our friends at Common Sense Media. So after the pandemic, Common Sense Media did a poll. And I don't know how they did the poll. I don't know how they reached out to these fine children. But their research indicated that after the pandemic, screen time among tweens and teens increased by 17%. Numbers don't mean that much to me. So here's what 17% looks like. They started at teens and tweens, the average daily screen time usage was like 7 hours and 22 minutes. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That was before the pandemic. After the pandemic, it went up 17%, which ended up being, on average, 8 hours and 39 minutes per day.
That's a work day.
That's what I keep,
work day.
Every time I look at it, that's what I think.
Yeah.
It's a work day. Actually, they're doing a little overtime.
Yeah,
exactly.
They are. Yeah.
And then if you take out sleep time, what's left? So I did some math on it, and poor Paula's had to hear me say this how many times?
It's all good.
So here's what 8 hours and 39 minutes works out to. In a year, it's 3,157 hours. And still agreeably, that's a lot. But that didn't speak to me as much as the next number did. That works out to 131 days per year in front of a screen.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's a little more, it's easier to wrap your
Yeah.
head around a
The
number
cost.
as far as, yeah. That's
So,
crazy.
what are we losing? I mean, if you take a freshman in high school and just say until their freshman year of college, look at all those days lost to a screen. I mean,
You're losing relationships with people, and they're losing the ability to know how to communicate face to face with people.
what about creativity?
Oh yeah.
You know, the Malcolm Gladwell, which every time I mentioned that when we were in Indianapolis, I said the wrong book. His 10,000 hours is in, now I'm going to mess it up again. It's in Outliers, I think. I don't know. Anyway, Malcolm Gladwell in one of his books talked about 10,000 hours. If you want to become an expert in something, dedicate 10,000 hours to it. And some people took that the wrong way. And some parents, use that as a parenting guide, and that wasn't what it was meant for. Anyway, you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you become an expert at it. I just don't think that 10,000 hours in front of a screen is going to necessarily make you an expert in anything.
No.
Mm-mm.
And
No.
like I said to the athletes that we were talking to in Indianapolis, it's why I like athletes. It's why I like theater kids. It's why I like fine
Band
arts kids,
Yeah.
because those kids can't spend 8 hours on their devices.
They have to practice.
They have an
have to
outlet
train.
outside of.
Yeah, and so for parents, my encouragement would be get your kid a hobby, get your kid out doing something other than screens, which takes us to this article that we all read about our brains and what's happening to our brains when they're on screens all the time. And this research, I don't know if y'all noticed, when I see 2018, I think that's like yesterday.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
That's not that long.
But with regards to technology,
True.
that is so long ago. We didn't even have TikTok in 2018.
Seriously.
Those were better days.
Man. Can you imagine a world without TikTok?
I was like,
Oh.
life before TikTok.
So this article, the NIH did a study in 2018 where they found that, okay, I'm going to have to read it because it's numbers again. Children who spent more than 2 hours a day on screens showed that they scored lower in language and thinking tests. 2 hours a day on average, they would show lower language and thinking skills on tests. And then for children who spent 7 hours on average per day, this was the most profound to me, showed thinning of the brain's cortex.
Which later on, right,
Yeah.
leads to dementia, right?
Well, that's what it's the thing that dementia patients have
okay.
in common is a thinning of the brain's cortex. And the brain's cortex is where like executive function and those kinds of activities are managed. So what impact does that have on you who's about to be a grandmother for the first time?
Well, I will say this, and we've talked about it, that this generation, they're going to do it better because they have grown up in this and they see the effects. My son and daughter-in-law have already decided, they've already been talking about screen time and what they will and will not allow, which I'm grateful for.
Really?
Yes. Because they see kids in the grocery store or at restaurants who are like this and they're not interacting with family. They're just on a phone. Interestingly, too, it kind of goes along with this, like what they watch. So not only just the amount of time that they're on it, but what they watch. So like Cocomelon, and I'm not dissing Cocomelon because I haven't watched a whole episode, but I did watch a little bit of it, and it is vastly entertaining. Bright colors, constant motion. But what researchers are showing now, and parents are complaining about, is their kids who watch Cocomelon all the time, more tantrums, and loss of language skills. So one mom read an article, decided to do her own little experiment, took Cocomelon away from her child's viewing pleasure. And in a week, her kid was speaking more words and the tantrums had stopped. So there's something to that. And that's an isolated case, I know, but there's something to that constant motion, those constant colors. Overstimulation to the kid. So you add that on top of how much time they're spending. Yeah. These kids are going to have problems if we don't do something. And so I think this generation is taking that into consideration. I'm proud of them.
And I think a lot of what we, coming from the classroom of early childhood too, is I think it moved from, my kid is learning things from the educational aspect of technology, which is fine. But think about it this way. Your kid is absorbing, they're receiving, but they're not interacting.
Right.
And so it's a completely different thing. Your child may be picking up on things, but they're not engaged in language.
Well, and I think it was this article that said, for until the age of 2, they're hearing it, but they're not grasping it.
Right.
And so, we've seen it. Kids don't approach all of this technology the same way we do. I go to YouTube to figure out how to get the what was it, the iron steam stain off of my dining room table because I messed up. I go to grasp certain knowledge.
Right.
Our kids are using it for entertainment and to solve the problem of boredom, which isn't a problem.
Right.
Well, which is also why so many of them don't know how to entertain themselves anymore. They have to be entertained.
Right.
Which makes it harder in the classroom. As former teachers, we understand you got to be
You can't compete with Cocomelon.
No.
You cannot.
No.
Where do people find Cocomelon? Because I keep hearing that, but is it on TV or is it on YouTube?
I know. I think it's on TV. I don't even really know. I think it's YouTube. I found it on YouTube.
Okay. Interesting.
Anyway.
Well, look, our friends at the Pew Research have done a little more research, and what they found was interesting regarding digital devices and kids. And one of the things they found was, and I'm going to quote from their findings, a majority of parents say children should be at least 12 years old in order to have their own smartphone. What do y'all think about that?
Majority
Well,
of parents.
yeah.
Is that what you see?
No. They have them as young as second, third grade.
Yes.
So they may think that, but they're not doing it. They're giving them the phone anyway, even though they know it's not the best thing to do.
Right.
And a 12-year-old needs a smartphone. You still can buy dumb phones.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be your first phone, especially if your first phone comes to you in the third grade or even the fourth grade. Why do they need access to all of that? But then they said, of those parents, 7 in 10 parents think that smartphones will hurt their children's ability to learn effective social skills, which you mentioned, or develop healthy friendships. What question does that does that bring up to you? If that's what you think,
then why are you doing it?
Right. Those statistics don't even line up.
If that's what you think, then why are you doing it? Why are you playing the game?
Is it social? Is it peer pressure among parents?
I think so. And the kids are all saying, well, everybody, and they're right. Pretty much everybody. No, that's not true. That's
actually,
not true.
yes. Do you know that actually happened? So when my kids, when Grayson was in junior high, she and one other girl were the only ones in their grade who had dumb phones. And so because they had dumb phones, they couldn't it made being in group text impossible. I mean, it was a thing. And so that the other girl who had a dumb phone, her older brother, who was actually in Jackson's grade, he mentioned to his mom, kind of offhanded comment, everyone in my grade has a smartphone. And she thought he was,
over exaggerating. Yeah.
He wasn't. He really was the only one. And he got one. But he was in high school. So
and that's different. That's different. He's older. No parent wants their kid to be the oddball, be the one left out.
Right.
And yet at the same time, I mean,
isn't that a life skill?
It is a life skill. Yeah.
Don't you still, as a grown adult, get left out of things?
I do.
Yeah.
And and I do.
And you have to cope.
Yeah. But if they don't know if they don't learn those coping skills when they're younger, how are they going to handle it when they're older? Because it doesn't get better.
No.
Well, the other percentage that this Pew Research showed was 73% of parents say children. Oh, I just did that one. I'm repeating.
That's
73% say you should be at least 12 to get your phone. Here's what I would say. Go check out our friends at Wait Until 8th.
That's a good one.
Wait Until 8th was an organization started maybe 10 years ago, maybe not that old. Waituntil8th.org is a group of moms from Austin who looked around at the culture and said, I want my kid to develop good social skills. I want my kid to do well in school. And so we're going to make a pact that we're not going to give our kids a smartphone, until they're in 8th grade. And they got a group of their peers
because there's strength in numbers.
There's strength in numbers. And so they put out great information. So my encouragement is, and it's often the mom who caves because we're motivated by, I don't want my kid to be left out. But Wait Until 8th. It's a great organization. Get your friends together, sign the pact, and put it off as long as you can. Yeah. Your kid will be better in the long run. And we'll talk more about that in another episode. And putting it off may help their brain, because here's what we're finding out. All these devices, it's not just our age, though I think it is. It's not just our age. We can't remember anything because of these devices. And yet I still know my phone number from the house I grew up in.
I do too. And my friends' phone numbers. But I can't remember my mom, my dad, my sister, my kids, my husband's number right now because
you know why?
Their name.
Exactly.
Well, because we're not having to do it every single time.
That's just it.
Yeah. There's no repetition.
What? Okay, but
I couldn't tell you my kids' phone numbers right now off the top of my head. their cell numbers because they're in my phone, and all I do is punch their name.
But my question is that a bad thing?
I just, are we exercising that muscle? Are we using the brain muscle like we used to?
It's a convenience,
right?
At the same time, it's a convenience, but is there benefit to? I mean, what's
are we
the
working on? Are we working on memory when we don't have to remember anything?
Yeah.
Okay, but my thought is, if I'm not keeping all of that, what I would call useless information stored in my brain, have I made room for?
I don't know that I have.
I don't know that I have either. That's what I'm thinking. My clearinghouse isn't working that well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's a quote from the article on our memory and digital amnesia, which they call it.
Oh.
When we're not attending to an experience, we are less likely to recall it properly, and fewer recalled experience can even limit our capacity to have new ideas and be creative. Which reminded me of,
yes.
Which reminded me of this year at Coachella.
Your favorite event.
Yes. So Harry Styles was one of the headliners for Coachella. So the big news was he had a surprise guest every night, but this one night he's on stage by himself, and those very distinctive notes hit, and everyone in the crowd knows it's Shania Twain, Feels Like a Woman. And so she comes out and sings. And the next morning there are videos all over social media about that. But here's what caught my attention the most. One, it was awesome, the Shania Twain thing. But everyone in the crowd was holding up a phone. Everyone. Because I enlarged the picture. Everyone in the crowd was videotaping it.
Instead of enjoying the experience personally. But I also understand you want to videotape that so you have it.
So you have the memory,
but it's not the same.
But do you not trust that there are professionals in the room who are going to have video?
Right, true. That's
it's just like at every wedding you go to.
I was just going to say, we talked about with the wedding.
Didn't y'all ask it?
Yes.
They announced at Katie's wedding.
We did. We asked to
put your phones away.
Put phones away.
Yeah.
And yet we see people at weddings and do you not realize they've paid a professional photographer
who's going to take a much better
got
picture.
a better camera than your phone? Yeah.
Professional photographer and videographer.
Yeah.
All right.
Good point.
Enough of that.
Okay.
Screen time, look, it's impacting us. It's having an impact. We have to consider that. But enough of the negative. There have to be good stories, good things going on the internet. Paula, you found something good on the internet.
It's a new app called Morale.
Which I downloaded yesterday.
Did you try it?
I haven't.
Okay, well, you can later. So basically, the whole purpose of this app is that you share positive comments. You can share and receive 5 a day. So it's not like you can be on it all day long again. You've got 5, but it has to be something positive because that builds morale. And when you've got a group of people who are all saying, kind and encouraging things to other, that boosts your spirits. It also, it's very, very strict in that if you do come across something that's unwarranted or something that's negative, you immediately block and report that person. They're gone. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Well, and it was created because they realized that so many people, it's easy to say negative things because of anonymity. There you go. It's coming.
That's it. Yeah.
And so people do that more often, but it's easier to point out the negative than the positive. And that's the whole purpose of this app.
It takes
point
more
out
effort.
The positive. Yeah. Point out the positive.
Good.
I love
Yeah.
it.
That's nice. So everybody go out there and download it.
Do it. Morale. Do it
The
today.
Morale app.
Yep.
All right. I have a question for you. Is this a stupid idea? I read about this, and we're going to be real fast about it. In May, the FCC, governmental agency, implemented new policies to combat unlawful robocalls and malicious caller ID spoofing. They sent cease and desist letters to more than a dozen voice service providers that allow robo companies to exist on their network. And here's the interesting one. One company alone called Sumco Panama, there's a name. Sumco Panama was behind roughly 8 billion
That's crazy.
car warranty calls in 2018.
One company.
One company.
So now we all know who that was.
Who's been calling us. So is that a stupid idea or not?
No, that is a great idea.
It's about
It's about dadgum time.
That does it for this episode of the Think Before You Post podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Oh, we have a new viewer on YouTube. Paula's mom found us on the YouTube.
She did.
So, hey, honey, glad you're watching. If you can, go to Apple and rate us and review us, but only a 5-star because we're sensitive. Thanks. We'll see you next time.